be seated. And Shabbat Shalom. And I want to give a special introduction to somebody that we've got, a guest with us today, but they're really not a visitor, they're mishpacha. So we always say if you've been once, you're a visitor, you come back again, you're mishpacha, your family. But we welcome the VA family as they are here from Australia, from down under. You know, you ask the question, and we have people ask the question, visitors that will come, do you guys support missions? Or you guys, yeah, thank you. That was for the tourist service, so we just want to make sure that we have that right, you know, but no, thank you, Zelta. But, you know, we ask, are we involved in missions? And the reality is, yes, we are. And so the VA family is a face of Beth Yeshua congregation in Australia. We're not the only congregation. They represent many others as well that support them. But I just want to give us a word. You know, we've been going through, since we ended in the book of Acts, we've been talking about the Kehillah, the assembly, the church, and what that looks like, the Messianic synagogue, all the terminology issues and stuff like that. But I just want us to think about something. You know, one of the biggest criticisms, has anybody heard the argument, what's the telephone argument that, you know, the gospel's really just fabricated stories that were kind of made and they happen over time. And, you know, you tell a story to one person and then, of course, that person tells a story to another person, and then that person tells a story to another person. By the time you get to the very end, it's like completely different, right, than what you ever got to. I remember they did that for me in high school. My one of my professors, or my professor, you know how they call that in high school, but one of my teachers, and he video recorded us, and he, you know, would have a line that the person had to read, and then of course he would call the next person in his room, and they had to listen to the recording, and they had to say it the way that they heard it. And of course he's recording this, and of course there was this fun. I was like this dumb jock kind of person, and so there was this funny experience where somebody asked me a question about a Letterman jacket. One of the vendors were there trying to sell, and I said, my response was, I play football. And so all the guys laughed at me and would just say, I play football. And so it was kind of this funny thing. Well, I tried to remember and tried to read as much as I could until finally, at some point, I just couldn't tell what was being said, so I said, I play football. And there's like 10 people after me, and so each one of them that comes on there, they go, I play football. Everybody got that part right. So it was kind of a funny thing. So kind of funny how stuff can get diluted. But I want to encourage us that that is not what happened with the gospel and with the apostolic writings. I want to encourage us with a word. And you want to talk about the importance of mission. And, you know, Beth Yeshua congregation, I'll be honest, at times we've been a little bit isolated. We've not always been as connected to other congregations. In fact, that's a part of the problem with the Messianic movement in times past, particularly here in the DFW area, is that congregations were disconnected, and there was this territorial, tribal mentality. And that didn't exist in the apostolic community. Now, maybe it did to some degree. But I want to encourage us. Rav Shaul, did he work on his own? Was he separate from other people? In fact, even today in the academic world, they will call it Pauline Christianity, other than, you know, others. And Paul says this in 1 Corinthians, consider this in 1 Corinthians 16:5. But I will come to you after I've passed through Macedonia and passed through, not there, verse 10, excuse me, in verse 10. Now if Timothy comes, see that he has nothing to fear among you, for he is doing the Lord's work, just as I am. No one then should treat him with disrespect, but set him on his way in shalom, so that he might come to me, for I am expecting him along with the brothers. Timothy was traveling and coming to speak to the Corinthians on behalf of Rav Shaul, and he's somewhere else. In verse 12, it says, Now about our brother Apollos, I strongly urged him to come to you with the brothers and the sisters, and he was quite unwilling to come now, but he will when he has the opportunity. Apollos was somebody who was separate from Paul in another part and coming to another locality. That's Paul addressing the Corinthians. Listen to Paul addressing the Ephesians in Ephesians 6:21. Now Tychicus, my dear beloved brother and faithful servant of the Lord, will give you all the news about me so that you may know how I am doing. In other words, Paul's separate from these people in the Ephesus, Turkey region, and he's going to send them Tychicus to give report. I have sent him to you for this very reason, so that you may know how we are, and that he may encourage your hearts. That he may encourage your hearts. You see, the body is encouraged when we hear about work that the Lord is doing through other people in other parts of the world, in other locations. There's a need for missions because a part of it is just the call and the commission that Yeshua gave to go and make Talmudim amongst all the Goyim, amongst all the nations. This idea that Paul was separate and worked on his own is totally false according to his own pen. He was totally connected to others, and these people would go, and these were his associates that would go and oftentimes give updates to the kahilot, to the assemblies, to the churches, to the Messianic synagogues, if you want to call them that. Colossians chapter 4, verse 7. Tychicus, here again we go, a dearly beloved brother and trustworthy servant and fellow slave to the Lord, servant is the term there, will tell you all the news about me. I sent him to you for this very purpose, so that you may know about us, that he may encourage your hearts. We're probably not going to speak tongues. I don't know, but we're probably not going to speak tongues up here, but we are going to give prophecy in good, plain information to encourage your hearts so that you may understand and know what the Lord is doing. Epaphras in verse 12, who is one of your own, a slave, a servant of Messiah Yeshua, greets you. He is always laboring in prayer on your behalf, so that you may stand complete and fully assured about everything that God is doing in God's will.